Hey guys, I'm Lexie Smith, a mom, multi-hyphenate entrepreneur, and the founder and CEO of the PR Bar Inc. coaching platform and agency. In my career, I've had the privilege of guiding countless brands, ingenious publicists, eager students, and ambitious entrepreneurs on their PR journeys. I've danced with the giants and nurtured startups, directed in-house PR departments, lent my expertise to boards, and spread knowledge across universities nationwide. Throughout all of this, I've seen our industry change and evolve while simultaneously proving that some timeless fundamentals remain unshaken. This show takes you behind the scenes of the world of media, marketing, and PR, aiming to teach you all the new tips, tricks, and how the best and brightest are achieving success over SIPs. Now it's time to grow. Welcome to the show. With more than 2 decades of editorial experience, travel and pop culture journalist Rachel Chang is a former magazine editor, Us Weekly senior editor, J14 shout-out editor-in-chief, CosmoGIRL entertainment editor turned freelance writer and editor. She's a regular contributor to Condé Nast Traveler and Travel and Leisure, and has edited projects for Tripadvisor and Time and written for Lonely Planet, New York Times for Kids, Wall Street Journal's Buy Slide, Washington Post Hemisphere, among others. Rachel, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to chat with you today. I want to kick it off with let's do part 2. Where is home base? And I know the answer, but where are you now? And what do you like to do outside of work for fun?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to chat. I am originally a California girl. I grew up in the Bay Area and I now live in, depending on how well I say New York City, but I technically live in Hoboken, New Jersey, which I know is kind of controversial to say I live in New York when I live in Jersey, but I can see Manhattan from my window, which I know doesn't count. I'm still in Jersey and I am now proudly in Jersey. During the pandemic, I learned to love my Garden State, but I am currently actually back home at my parents' house in San Jose, California. Outside of that was the next question, right? Outside of work,
I asked I stacked 3 on top of each other, which is anti-journalism 101. No one take notes from that. But yes, next question. So when you're not writing and ruling the world, what do you like to do outside of work?
I guess the kind of funny thing is I've turned my hobbies into my job. So I obviously love travel and I love entertainment and that's what I do. So that is both amazing. I'm so grateful that my work is everything I love, but sometimes it can be a little challenging to turn off the button and be like, okay, just relax and enjoy. But I think that's a lovely problem to have. But outside of that, gosh, am I so one note that I only love travel and entertainment?
That's not no. I mean, kudos to you, right? That's the dream. Let's do this instead because also lover of travel. What are maybe I know this is always the hard, fun question. Top 2 places you've been to.
Oh, you've narrowed it down to
or 3. You can go 3.
I know the one, and maybe 3 is. I know 1, but 3 is. Okay, let's go for top. I feel like it's Patagonia. I feel like it is just. I mean, the color, everything there is just more vibrant. Every color is brighter. It's you've stepped into a Technicolor world, and I think that at least when I went, I hope that over tourism doesn't go crazy there, but it was just so isolated that you truly feel like you're bonding with the place because you're one of just a handful of people there. And I went on a solo hike for 8 hours. Wow. And it was both terrifying, but also just so empowering. And I think there's just something about really connecting with a place and nature and the world without having people and anything man-made in the way. It was just nature.
Ironically, I just was in Denver and with a co-founder of a second business, her sister just got back from Patagonia this Saturday. So I was hearing all about Patagonia. Now you're saying Patagonia, and I feel like it's not a place that's talked about. And fun fact, I live in Ventura, California, which is the headquarters to the company Patagonia.
Yes. And like, I mean, like most of us, I learned what Patagonia was through the logo on the Patagonia brand. And that's the Mount Fitzroy. I didn't summit it, but I went to it's not base camp, but the base of it. And there's a beautiful lake. And so that's the hike I went on. And it's just so crazy. Now I constantly have reminders of it every time I see anybody wearing Patagonia, which is what.
Right. And now you'll think of me because that's where I live, not Patagonia. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Yes. Amazing. Well, I feel like, okay, so we can end there because
that was only one.
Well, I mean, you can certainly give a shout out, but you gave like such a lovely shout out that I feel like that one was like,
I'll do a couple quick ones. Well, I'm just like obsessed with London. I wish I was British. So London is just always my favorite thing to do in London is just get on a red bus and not know where I'm going and just like see where the adventure takes me. And then I recently went to Estonia, which is also not talked about a lot. And I just absolutely fell in love with the country. It's just so easy to travel there. It's also, I heard later that it's a good country for introverts. And I'm like, maybe that's why I bonded with it. But it's like, everyone gives you their space, but yet they're still very friendly. And like, there's no worries, like everything's on time. Like I took the train from one city to another. It was just like, I had no anxiety about anything. It was just so easy and lovely.
Okay. Yeah, that you're right. I mean, that's not one that's been on my radar. British, this is a fun fact, mostly for our longtime listeners, but for you too. In 5th grade, I was Oliver Twist in Oliver and Twist. And so for the entire 5th grade year, I walked around with a British accent because I thought I was in character. So here we are.
I am not going to try to attempt my British accent. It's so terrible.
Oh my God. Okay, so that's a bit about my past career. Now what we're going to do is refocus a little bit and talk about some of your career cliff notes. So I read a condensed version of your bio, but I'd love to hear a little bit more about your career journey up until today.
Of course. So I knew I wanted to go into media, and I didn't know until I got to college that meant so much. I just thought, oh, that's a path. I didn't realize that's 1,000 million different paths these days. So I started in entertainment, growing up in California and going to school at UCLA. I just had my eyes on Hollywood. And so I was a little bit of a internship, I don't know the right word, but I did 4 internships at one time. So I wanted to try everything. Like I just wanted to understand the industry. So mostly I mostly did television internships at first. So and I started, my first job out of school was also in television. I started at the WB network, which totally dates me because it doesn't exist anymore, RIP. But it was during the heyday of Dawson's Creek, Felicity, Buffy, and it was just such a fabulous time to be part of a team because they depended on our opinions as assistants because we were the demographic.
Yeah.
And so it was just such a wonderful, absolutely jumping headfirst into the industry. And I loved I was in the photo publicity department, which was, again, something I didn't know existed, just dealing with imagery. And I loved it, but I also wanted to write. And I also wanted to be on the other side of the business. So I went back to graduate school at Syracuse. Shout out to Newhouse, SI Newhouse School of Public Communications, fully, as we're taught to always say. And I got my degree in, at the time it was called MNO, Magazine, Newspaper, and Online Journalism. And then I went to New York City, where I had my eye on a magazine career. And much to I don't know how my grad school professors felt about me going to grad school to pursue teen magazines, but that was my goal in life at that point. And I'm so glad I did it then, because I definitely think there are certain things you need to do at a certain age and a certain point in your career. And I couldn't have done that. Now I can't relate to the audience. So I worked my way up from a smaller magazine called Pop Star, which was 3 of us in an office. And the great thing is I did everything. And the hardest part was that I did everything, but I also just made contacts and really knew everyone in that industry, and was grateful that I was soon kind of recruited over to J14. But then I saw an opportunity at CosmoGIRL. So of course I had to apply for that. Unfortunately, CosmoGIRL folded about 2 years into my time there. And then I was grateful that J14 asked me to come back. And eventually I became the editor-in-chief of J14 for about 4 years. And then it got to the point where I felt like I was more closer to age to the parents of the teen celebrities, like Justin Bieber and Selena Gomez had young mothers. And so I felt like I needed to kind of age myself up. And so I transitioned over to Us Weekly and was there for about 4 years, ironically editing that hot pick section. So kind of taking my original photo publicity experience from the WB and focusing on imagery again and telling stories through pictures. And then also writing there too, and short quippy lines more so than long form. And then on the side, all along, I was getting these opportunities to travel to cover stories. And I ended up falling in love with travel. No offense to celebrities at large, but I just thought there was such a universality to travel. Like I was once on the Cheetah Girls 2 set in Barcelona.
I'm dying.
And it was just, I think it was like an assistant, one of the I can't remember which girl's mother, and like there was just a group of us, and we're just all chatting about this market that we'd all happened to go to, and there was just such a bond about it, and like we all were so passionate about something we'd experienced in different ways, and it was almost like that moment I was just like, there's just something, so everybody's on the same page, it doesn't matter who you are. And I just really was like, okay, this is something I want to pursue. I was grateful I had an opportunity to start writing for Travel and Leisure a bit when solo travel was just kind of getting more talked about. So I wrote kind of their first group of solo travel stories. And then kind of from there, I ended up having a job in travel for about 2 years at Travel Zoo, and used that time to really build my network. And I wanted to go freelance, so I'm freelance by choice, and I'm grateful that I'm in a position where my biggest problem is I have to learn to say no to more projects, and so it's been really, really amazing, and I'm just so grateful.
I feel like I just fangirled like 20 times during that. You were speaking to my childhood, to my teenagehood. I'm sorry, Cheetah Girls? Are you kidding me? I'm dead.
Ridiculous. I'm ridiculous. I know. I can't believe it's her.
Okay, I definitely read J14. I definitely read CosmoGIRL. Then I graduated to Cosmo. Wow. Okay, you're living in 13 going on 30. Great. That's basically been your career. Incredible. Okay. I'm like, calm down, Lexie. Okay. So let's go here. We're gonna go from fun coverage, magazines, digitally. The world has changed a lot, to your point. Like you kind of chose to change into freelancing, whereas what I'm learning, and we're seeing more and more people being forced into that. So you were ahead of the curve. And as I was doing my research for today's show and trying to decide of the zillion things we could talk about, what I want to talk about, something caught my eye in your LinkedIn bio that I think is becoming more and more prevalent. And again, you're ahead of the curve. And that specifically, I'm just going to literally read what you put on your LinkedIn. You are an expert in producing SEO-driven news pieces and stories. So here's where I want to go with this. First off, for everyone listening, if you don't know what SEO means, it's search engine optimization. Broadly speaking, this role, and at least in my mind, was always kind of outsourced to like an SEO team. But now I am seeing, even in call for source pitches, like this need to, as publicists or as writers, include more SEO into your writing. So long-winded question way of asking is, talk to me about how SEO has become part of your role as a freelance journalist.
Yeah, that's a huge and such an important question. And I think that having been raised in the print world, obviously we just focused on content at the time, and headlines. But then if you think about it, headlines were SEO, are SEO, or they still are around, but headlines are SEO, but just in a different way for print I'm talking about. But I think we had more freedom with print headlines, right? You could just be kind of more fun about it. It didn't matter if it really, like, I'm thinking about celebrity headlines where we would just like, I can't even think of a good example now, but like Kristen Bell, I ring a bell, whatever. That's a terrible example, but like, but you could do that, and you can't do that with SEO, right? Like you need to have the full name, and it's more blatant. So, I mean, I've definitely had different types of approaches to different outlets I've worked with. And at one point in time, I did strictly do SEO content for an outlet where it was like every morning I looked down Google Trends and saw what was trending. And then I knew what they needed and kind of married those two together to be like, oh, well, today, I don't know why Travis Kelce's the first person who comes to my mind, but here we go. I'm not even a fan. I'm not a fan, but like if he's trending, then maybe there's a football related story that could be tied to travel or whatever it might be. It might not be a one-to-one link, but I think I'm seeing a little change just recently that those short, like those moment in time stories don't seem to be as like, I think people want to be a little bit stickier than that quick hit, because yes, you want to get to the top of Google News, but you don't want to only have that hit that day. So I think there is, and this could completely just be the outlets or the stories that I'm working like maybe I just shifted to a different priority within these outlets that I'm writing for right now. But I feel like right now it's not so much moment in time. There is a little bit more of a look ahead. And I think that whether or not I'm actually packing my stories with SEO, with keywords and whatnot, I think there's still that mentality of when you're pitching, you're really thinking SEO first, right? You're thinking what's going to get that, because you're basically pitching with headlines that you hope will be clicked. And yes, that we have this whole thing about clickbait being awful, but I think that ultimately we do want people to click on the stories, and it is important. So I'll, with most of my stories, I turn in with 5 different headlines. And when I'm writing those 5 headlines, I'm thinking of 5 ways into the same story, but it is kind of trying to capture that world of what are people searching for to get here. It is always thinking about that search. What are the words people are plugging into? So I mean, in some ways, I know that I don't know if it's something to be grateful for per se, but I think because of my magazine roots, I haven't been told like you have to plug in all these words and you have to plug this in the first 10. I mean, there have been a couple times where I get this phrase in the first 20 words, but in general, I have editorial freedom, and then my editors kind of take it to the next level with the complete SEO optimization. But I think that we all live in an SEO-driven world, so we have to all think about it.
Did you know that I send out a community newsletter roundup every Tuesday, chocked full of resources, media kit downloads, journalist contact information, event invites, visibility opportunities? Basically, if you're not on the list, hit pause and sign up. It is super simple. All you got to do is go to theprbarinc.com/newsworthy. That link is in the show notes too. Okay, back to the show. 100%. And thank you for sharing too the kind of more timely tactic of looking at the Google News trends. But as we think about being sticker and we think about more evergreen and content that's going to live at the top of Google for longer, are there any other tools that maybe not now as you're sharing, you're doing more editorial, but when you are in that SEO mindset, tangible tools you use, or is it really just how do people think? Are there any other kind of tips there?
I mean, sometimes I'll just look at how that, like the recent stories of the headlines of the outlet I'm writing for, and quickly you'll see trends. I mean, I don't want to say they're formulas, but there are often like this TK. Do people still use TK in this world? That's very old school magazine to come. But it's this fill in the blank is the most fill in the blank that it's kind of like a formula of sorts. So it's still, obviously you should always be looking at the outlet you're writing for, whether it's print or online. But I think just studying what people are putting forward in that moment, like right now, these 3 headlines are working. Or sometimes it's even silly word, not silly, but like there'll be a word that everyone's using. Like I noticed one outlet I worked for was using stunning a lot. And so I started pitching stories with the word stunning. So sometimes it's not the actual subject, but just the way you present it.
Yeah. You know what? Thank you for highlighting that. It's outside of agency land, I teach entrepreneurs how to do PR. And one of the tricks and tactics I say is go whether, and I actually think this works for podcasts, this works for digital, this works for magazines, but go look at the history, the titles, the headlines, the bylines, and can you find patterns or formulas to how they write their articles? Are you seeing how to blank, how to blank? Then in turn, when you're pitching a story idea, plug and play the formula with your new and innovative idea. So that's what I'm kind of hearing you do as well on the freelancer side. Yeah.
Absolutely. Exactly. And like the 5 headlines I pitch, I always try to make them a different approach. I'll always have one that starts with how to, like you said, and then another one will be this, something is the most this. And so I try to plug and play a few of them, and then I try to freeform a couple. Just, I will say 9 out of 10 times, none of the 5 of my headlines are used exactly, but it'll be some combination of all of them. And yeah, so it's just kind of exercising your brain. I know this isn't the ideal way to do it. I write my headlines first, so I know the directions I'm heading. I'm a little, I know that this is not what I learned in school or how I would teach others, but it's just my habit. I also can't write a story without knowing exactly what the first line should be. I understand I can go back and change it, but I rarely do. So that's just kind of my own habit, but I need those 2 jumping off points to really kind of formulate where, like, kind of have my direction set before I dive in.
So, well, actually, before I ask this question, do you get pitched as a writer? Do people
from clients? I mean, yes, absolutely. I mean,
okay.
The bulk of my emails are
I didn't want to assume, but I assumed. Yes. I assumed yes. So is there a way when someone's pitching you, especially kind of now, or maybe you've started to see it, a way to highlight any, I don't even know what to call it, like SEO elements in a pitch, or does that really matter? Or do you have any advice, or what are you kind of seeing in that lane?
I had been saying something, which then I soon realized was my personal preference. That is probably not everyone's preference, but a lot of times pitches would come to me completely packaged. Like, this is the story, and these are the examples of the story. And I don't know, this might just be my old school magazine competitiveness. I'm like, well, if you're pitching this to me, you probably pitch this to other people. So I wouldn't take that to an outlet completely wrapped with a bow, tied with whatever the right expression is, but tied with the bow like that. I almost feel like it's my job to find the exact story. Like, I just want to know what the news is. And I know that's not everybody's preference, but I kind of feel like it's my job to find the story and for the pitch to just be, this is what the news is. That said, I do think oftentimes what that element is often seen just from, like, I mean, this is an example I always give, but I feel like it just, like, if a hotel is opening a new restaurant, that is a huge deal to the hotel. But to the world at large, how many hotels are there and how many are opening new restaurants every month? It's not really a news item. So I feel like just like pulling back and really looking at just letting me know what the news is, but then perhaps I also know of 3 others that also happen to be having new, I mean, this is awful. I'm terrible at examples, but like beekeeping farming on their rooftops. And so now they're using local honey or whatever. Maybe I'm seeing that, like, within that pitch, there's something I'm pulling out. So I almost kind of like the quick hits of what are the aspects that make this unique. And then I'll stitch together the story, but I understand that other people like having it stitched together already. But from my perspective, I wouldn't, because oftentimes that's just the agency kind of sewing all their clients together. And like, I would want to diversify it and not just have, obviously you can't have just one agency story, clients in one story. So I feel like I just, so I don't know. I think I'm a little different in that realm, but I do feel like across the board, what is the actual like new, what makes this so different than everything else in the world of that?
Well, that's hard. Easier said than done, right? And no, you're
always happen.
I just want to comment, like, this is why I have this show, is because we can talk about best practices. We can talk about what we learned in journalism school. I have a journalism and PR background. But at the end of the day, like, you are you, I am me, and we all come with our personal preferences. And that's what 6 seasons in, I've had such a it's like wonderfully helpful and very frustrating at the same time. It's just right. Like, how do you know? And I think that goes back down to really doing your research and listening to shows like this, or trying to make relationships so you can get to know what are the preferences and how what does this specific writer or editor or freelancer prefer? Because to your point, someone else, like I have some TV producers who, when I deliver a prepackaged bow, they're like, God bless you. Where I've also seen journalists be offended when I offer a headline because they're like, I'm sorry, are you the journalist? No. So I do think it's nuanced, and it's not a one size fits all approach. So I actually want to thank you for highlighting that, and everyone listening, like, hear that. Like, it is really like highlights the importance of taking the time to customize the pitch to whom you're pitching.
And it's so difficult. I don't envy the PR side at all. Like, literally, you don't know, right? You're just throwing darts and you have no idea. And then I'm maybe receiving darts, but then I'm also shooting darts at the outlets. So like, I don't know what they have on their editorial calendar. And so it's completely a game of chance, I hate to say, but there are obviously ways to funnel in to make the chances higher, right? Like working with editors regularly, I developed a relationship with them, and they will come to me for certain stories, and I'll go to them for certain things. And then right away, it's like, no questions, of course. And I think obviously that's what I think works the best. Like, when I get approached for something that's celebrity meets entertainment, I'm like, oh, that person's really found me because they've looked at my background, know that I'm the right person for this. And sometimes it'll be a cold pitch. Like years ago, somebody came to me who was repping a hotel, and they had an opportunity with Shonda Rhimes, and I was like, wow, they really looked and saw that I have both, and then it ended up being a print piece in Travel and Leisure. So amazing. I think I was so touched that they had looked at me, and conversely, somebody else was pitched a recent story that I thought it was pretty obvious from my social media that I was perfect for, and it was passed to somebody else. And I was like, oh, why didn't you come to me with that?
Yeah.
Eventually, I'm grateful it actually went to a friend who eventually got to me. But I was kind of like, oh, I thought I was pretty out there with both these things.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so actually what we're going to do now on this line of preference and personal preferences, which is what preference means. I digress. We're doing a rapid fire. So basically it's, what do you prefer, of a short list of questions. So I'm just going to jump right in if you're ready.
Let's go. I'm so used to giving the rapid fire. I just gave one yesterday. So I'm like, oh my God, I haven't been on the receiving end of one.
I have to do the graphics now on YouTube where there's like the little starter flag, like,
yes, exactly.
Go. Okay. Is there a time of day you prefer to be pitched?
Morning, I think. Morning.
Okay.
Actually, not like as early, like between 9 and 11 ish, like earlier morning. That makes sense.
East Coast time for those listening. Yeah. Okay. Day of the week you prefer to be pitched, or you can answer that oppositely, like, don't pitch me on.
Don't pitch me on Friday, maybe? Or don't pitch me the day before the event or the day before the opportunity, because I have to also go to then go to my editor. That's all going to take some time. I get a lot of day befores. Yeah.
Okay. Pleasantries. Do you want them to take a line or two to kind of prove they have researched your work?
I was going to say it depends on my mood.
Touche.
That's terrible. I am touched when I feel like they've done their research to come to me, but I also find a lot of people will link to my story. And it's like, I know what I wrote.
Yeah. So like, duh. Yeah. Okay.
But other times I'm like, actually, no, I do write a lot of stories first, or now maybe I don't remember. So it depends on my mood.
Depends on your mood. Fair enough.
Terrible answer.
No, there is no right or wrong. That's the fun part, right? And I actually totally understand. Follow-ups. Are you okay with someone following up?
Absolutely. I think there's definitely times when you're just caught up on a deadline. I think there's so many aspects to all our jobs that if I'm on a crazy deadline for a big story, I will just shut everything down. So it does help. Obviously, I think a few days, a week later usually seems to feel right. In general, depends on the event. Obviously, if it's something that's more timely, I feel like a week later, and I feel like one follow-up is good.
Yeah.
I will say my recent pet peeve, because I had my out of office on, was that nobody was paying attention to my out of office. And I kept getting like repeated follow-ups for like, I was very clear when I was out of the country, and it was like, will you come to our event in 2 days? And I was like, no, yeah. So
I'm literally not here.
Yeah.
Okay. So as a freelancer, do you, and this is, I know it's going to depend on the story. So are you required to feature affiliate links and any amount of your work?
I'm getting an increasing, because I do cover a lot of products, travel products. I get a lot more pitches like, oh, this one's, a greater percent, or this is a better deal. And I am I guess I don't know if it's just the outlets I've been working for. I've been so editorial that it's all been done on the back end. So I really pick the affiliate, this sounds terrible. The affiliate links don't benefit me personally, right? The outlet. So I try to keep it. I keep my objective. That's where I am like a journalist about it, and I pick the best products, and I try not to pay attention to those. So often I'll delete those pitches just because it doesn't affect me, and it shouldn't affect me objectively. I should be picking the best products.
Thank you as a consumer. Thank you. Yes. One of my biggest gripes. I see it. I always play devil's advocate with this. I'm like, I see it. It's a business. I understand people need to make money, but on the flip side, the journalist in me like cringes. And as a consumer, blah, blah, blah. The battle is real. Back and forth.
Yeah. I'm a consumer of things I don't cover. And I'm just like, oh, become that skeptic, right? Like, actually just before I saw this amazing deal on this coat I was about to buy, and I was like, how much are they getting out of this?
Right? You see things from a whole new perspective now when you're in this lane. My friends and family don't get it, but I'm like they're like, oh, this is the best restaurant in town. I'm like, is it though?
They paid this many influencers to do this.
Yeah. Oh man. But so it's good to hear when I come across a journalist who doesn't live and breathe by affiliate. So thank you. Thank you for your service.
I was just in Taiwan for a month, and I was having this conversation with my dad's friend, because he was like, why is this place so popular? And it's because the internet had kind of like, it had gone viral. And he's like, this place is awful. And I was like, well, in a way, that's my job, right? I need to go and check to see if it's really real. Like yesterday, I stood in line for an hour at a tea place here in California, and I was like, it was good, but was it that good?
Right. Yeah. Totally. Okay. And then my last question here is social media DMs. Are you pro them, against them? How do you feel?
Again, maybe this is because I'm on the older side of social media, but I'm against. I feel like I can't say this. I was going to say, I feel like that's my personal lane, but that's not true, because I use it too. I just used it for a call for pitches that I was looking for. So I can't say that it's completely personal. And most of the stuff I do post is work related in some way, because it's about my travels. But for some reason, I feel like pitches I prefer as email. It just, mine feels more professional. And I get that sometimes there's a timely element and I might have missed it. But then my big thing is, I feel like with DMs, you're not seeing out of office. Why am I so stuck on out of office? But I feel like I have had a few people be pretty aggressive on DMs. And I'm like, well, if you had just sent me an email, you would have known that.
Right.
Way.
Well, again, why I ask, because we all have different preferences. And I will say I really resonate with you when you say it depends on the day, because it depends on my day too for a lot of these things. Like, anyways, so I resonate with that.
Not helpful, 0% helpful.
It's helpful if someone's listening and you're on their radar, right? And I think it's worth the call out, because it makes people slow down and think through the nuances and remember, especially in a world where there's like robots all the places, like how to interact with humans. Not to like take us on a whole new podcast, but as someone who's about to raise a daughter in this world, I'm like terrified of like, them not having the communication skills of, anyways, like I said, I digress. It's important to highlight.
It is also important for me to remember that publicists are people too. And there are I really empathize too, because I came from that world, and it's like, you can't be on call 24/7 just because I happen to be on the other side of the world and email you at what's 3 a.m. your time. Like, there's definitely you're right. Like, there's an element of humanity that we all need to remember all around.
Call to action, empathy, guys.
Empathy.
So looking forward, so we're recording this in Q4, and this will drop in Q1 roughly. So when we look ahead, Q1 next year, we'll just say next year, do you have any topics you already know up front you're interested in writing, or you're looking for sources? Give us like the insider scoop on what would be helpful to you.
Well, this isn't new, but for Q1, it's just timely because of the way the holiday drop. I mean, I personally am trying to hold myself more accountable for telling more Asian American stories, because I feel like I was always growing up in between worlds, and I felt like I didn't have a voice in any world. Like, when people asked me to edit an Asian American package, I also was like, I can't tell that story. I grew up in California. I'm like, right, but that's what it is. But like, I feel like I had a very particular sliver, and like what I see on TV isn't what I feel like I lived. But that all said, I'm realizing these stories just need to be elevated. And so I'm trying to pay attention to all that. That is all to say, Lunar New Year is in February. So, and then obviously Asian American Pacific Heritage, I've just mixed up the words, AAPIA. The Heritage Month is in May. And so with those coming up, I feel like I do want to elevate those stories more, especially in the travel world, but also if they happen to be beyond, I'm open to that. I just feel like there are only that when I edited that package it was for Tripadvisor, I realized how few Asian American journalists there are. And I feel like we all need to band together. And I feel like, I hope we can. And so open to really pitching any ideas in that realm. And I feel like in the greater world of just travel and entertainment, I know the word experiential is so thrown around these days. I feel like it used to be immersive, experiential, all these things. But I think there is that element where people don't just want a thing, they want to take away something they've done, something that really touches their lives. And so even if it is a product, even if it is a destination or a place, I feel like emphasizing what the possibilities are of how the takeaway and the really being in a place, whether it's still a post-pandemic, like, I can't believe I just said that, because I am very much of the mindset we're still in the pandemic, but a pandemic new value of really being able to experience something firsthand. I think just experiences are still, even if it is a tangible item, I think emphasizing what the experience is still very important, and just gives everything a higher value.
And for those, I think, can be a little more evergreen for the Lunar New Year and the API Heritage Month. When would you like to see pitches in your inbox?
That's a great question too, because I do feel like there's this whole calendar of when we get pitches. Like, obviously right now I'm still getting the Black Friday, Cyber Monday pitches, and it's like, we're days away. It's a little late. I don't think it's too early right now. I realize this isn't coming out till early Q1, but I do feel like also I have a folder in my inbox. I'm always filing things away. So if it's not now, it could be like, I don't feel like it's ever too early. I do feel like it's often too late. Yes, because there is that time. I mean, especially if there is an element of having to actually research it. I mean, there should be an element of actually researching it. I feel like that time often isn't built in. It's like a press release is sent and like, can you cover this for tomorrow? And it's like, you're not really giving me the opportunity as a journalist to look beyond just repurposing that press release in that moment. Like, I really should be looking at outside sources, how to package this or whatever it might be for the particular element in the particular class.
Fantastic. Okay. Biggest question of the entire show. We talked about Pitchin. What can we find you sipping? So, non-alcoholic or alcoholic?
Oh my gosh. Okay. This is really weird, but I was in Taiwan and I went to this crazy, amazing it's the most expensive, but also the highest buffet. It's on the 86th floor of Taipei 101, the skyscraper that was the highest in the world and is now the 11th. I don't know how it dropped to 11th in 20 years, but that shows how skyscrapers have changed. And they were serving coffee with mango juice in it, which sounded disgusting to me. I was like, why would you mix fruit and coffee? This is like I love both. Please do not mix these two. And it was like, they have a brand called Simple Coffee, which is their top #1 coffee brand in Taiwan. And it was the most amazing thing I'd ever had. I then went back for their other option, which was, sounds even more disgusting, coffee and tomato juice. And it was actually delightful too. And so then I became obsessed with fruit infused coffee. And they had, it was most of the time it was called Sicilian coffee, and it was lemon and coffee. But then there were other times I had like orange, tangerine, like just different coffee shops around Taipei. But shout out to Ajoy, because they made me fall in love with fruit infused coffee.
That is a first for this show. I love it. That's really cool. Yeah, it's definitely not like a flavor profile I would intuitively put together, but I'll keep I don't know if there's anywhere like stateside. I'm sure there's brands somewhere, but
there's a business idea maybe.
There we go. Go on Shark Tank.
You would put fruit in tea, right? So
yeah, that's true. I guess I'm drinking a fruit tea. It's so true. It's true. Okay, where would you like people to connect with you if they want to get in touch?
Absolutely. They can definitely connect. I mean, socially on Instagram is probably where I'm the most prolific, though not that prolific right now. But I should be more. I'm always about 3 weeks behind with my posts, but I am on Instagram to kind of follow along and give a sense of what I'm up to. And then just emailing me at the email address is in my Instagram profile. My business email is just rachel@byrachelchang.com.
Perfect. And we'll put that in the show notes for you guys. Rachel, thank you so much for taking the time and for sharing with us all of the things and what you prefer. It's literally why I started this show, is to get to know the people behind and the stories and the career paths. So I know you're not home too, which adds another layer to this being a little more complicated. So thank you for your time today and for just like being a good journalist, which is very, very clear.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for doing what you're doing and kind of turning us from email addresses into real human beings.
You're welcome. Pro human.
Woohoo,
yeah. Okay. Until next time, you guys, on the Pitchin and Sippin podcast. Hey guys, if you are enjoying the Pitchin and Sippin podcast, please do me a huge favor and leave a review wherever you are listening. If you want to connect with me to learn more about the PR Bar Inc., you can do so on Instagram at @thePRBar_Inc., or you can check out my website at theprbarinc.com. Cheers!